Deep within the Bavarian countryside sits Reisting, a rural community located 30 miles southwest of Munich. For 60 years, this site hosted the largest satellite tracking station in Germany. The public knows the giant white antenna dishes visible from the road. They do not know what the ground beneath them recorded. The tracking station monitored deep space transmissions for decades. Officials archived the logs away from public eyes. This is not fringe history. This is 6 decades of unbroken documented electronic record. Dr. Horace Drew, a molecular biologist at the California Institute of Technology, who spent 20 years analyzing structural changes in flattened vegetation, concluded that specific formations involve regional energy spikes that melt plant nodes from the inside out. He found that 30 documented cases in Western Europe involved plants whose cellular walls were elongated using high-frequency radiation. Standard wind patterns cannot recreate this structural expansion. The change requires an artificial source of intense microwave energy. Elon Musk discussed automated server diagnostics during a tech summit in Austin last November. The public missed the statement. The media ignored it. He stated that advanced machine learning models occasionally surface hidden historical patterns when left to process raw spatial data without human guidance. The software finds connections that data filters normally remove. The engineering teams call these outputs anomalies. SpaceX operates a server network outside Austin, Texas. Secure firewalls protect the infrastructure. Engineers there run deep data processing models under strict corporate secrecy rules. The platform restricts thousands of internal diagnostic responses every day. The development teams want to fix these anomalies. They believe unverified patterns create system instability. The Reisting formation changes the nature of the phenomenon. It did not appear near a random farm. It appeared precisely 800 meters from the main parabolic antenna of the space tracking facility. The design covered a wheat field with a diameter of 75 meters. The stalks of grain did not break. Instead, the plants bent precisely at 90 degrees, continuing to grow horizontally. The geometry of the design matches an ancient architectural principle. It uses the golden ratio to map a specific grid pattern onto the local landscape. The engineers ran the pattern through a computing cluster in absolute silence. They recognized the coordinates immediately. The layout matched a microwave transmission map recorded by the station during a deep space alignment project in 2014. The server logs have been viewed by 5 people in the terminal room. Your local technology blog has not mentioned it. Before we go further, drop your answer in the comments right now. Did you know a satellite station was involved in this case? I read every comment, and this one is going to split the room. The system output contains a sequence of numbers at the bottom of the data file. That sequence links to a project from 1954. Dr. Eamon Ansbro, an astrophysicist at the European Space Tracking Station who spent 25 years tracking atmospheric anomalies, confirmed machine output a layout mapping specific atomic resonance points. Traditional data feeds contain no such geographic markers. Subscribe before you go further. This is the kind of video that gets buried. The software developers want this diagnostic file scrubbed from the public domain. But we will get there. The server logs have been viewed by 5 people in the terminal room. Your local technology blog has not mentioned it. Before we go further, drop your answer in the comments right now. Did you know a satellite station was involved in this case? I read every comment, and this one is going to split the room. Munich, Germany, July 2024. A 34-year-old data analyst named Stefan Brandt sits in a temperature-controlled server room. Blue light reflects off the metal frames of his glasses. His fingers tap softly against a plastic keyboard. He holds a printed system log between his hands. The paper feels crisp. This moment changed his life forever. Brandt worked for a commercial network provider for 9 years. His job involved identifying corrupted data packets within cloud storage systems. He knew how standard software code behaves when servers overheat. He knew when a program glitched. This specific output did not look like broken code. He placed the raw log files into a specialized visualization program. The machine rendered the coordinate lines 50 times. Brandt did not see random text characters. He saw a perfect, repeating sequence of geometric equations mapping the Reisting fields. Each coordinate point measured precisely to the millimeter. Software does not build shapes this way by accident. A standard machine learning model cannot invent geographic coordinates without a prompt. The data stream combined old satellite telemetry and local weather radar into a single map. Brandt turned on a localized network scanner across the desk. He wanted to trace the original IP address of the inquiry. He adjusted the filter to flag internal server nodes. The screen did not show an outside user. The system did not crash. Instead, the terminal window refreshed itself 3 times. The central processing unit temperature dropped to absolute baseline. The server node stopped receiving outside web traffic completely. Brandt turned off the scanning tool. The fan noise returned to the room with a steady hum. He stood alone in the quiet aisle for 3 minutes. He did not notify his manager. He did not save the file to his personal drive. He knew exactly what he was watching. He watched the server process a signal that did not originate from the internet. 3 days later, 2 security compliance officers arrived at his office. They did not carry corporate badges. They simply handed him a termination contract with an international security firm watermark. They took his backup tapes, his local drives, and the printed logs. Brandt left the facility through the side door that afternoon. He now lives in a small village near the Austrian border. His findings did not disappear completely. A duplicate copy of the visualization file remained inside a hidden archive partition used by the core machine learning team. The engineers did not view the file as a corruption error. They viewed it as an unprompted mathematical proof. The team began analyzing the code structures using the exact equations Brandt found. What comes next is harder to dismiss. The software system named the file pattern 0. It is a completely structured geometric map measuring exactly 18 megabytes of pure code. It has no corrupt sectors, no broken links, and no random variables. The outer code block consists of the exact coordinate lattice Stefan Brandt discovered in Munich. The system did not create a picture. It processed a frequency map. Dr. Michael Persinger, a cognitive neuroscientist who directed the behavioral architecture labs at Laurentian University, spent 20 years analyzing the effects of localized magnetic fields on electronic systems. He stated that the presence of high-intensity geometric structures creates a magnetic induction response. The electricity around the node alters. This means the pattern acts as a physical circuit board printed directly into the soil. The first sub-revelation concerns the frequency of the pattern. Receiving stations at the Reisting facility tracked an underground electrical surge last July. The sensor picked up a signal at a depth of 12 feet. It vibrated at 5.2 kilohertz. That is the exact frequency used for submarine communication through solid earth. A standard electronic device cannot broadcast through dense clay without a massive power grid. The resistance dampens away within 3 meters, killing the transmission. The wheat field did not show signs of burning. The sensor log showed the soil temperature within the geometry remained at 15 degrees Celsius. The energy did not burn the plants. The magnetic wave altered the water molecules inside the plant stems, softening the fibers so the grain laid flat without snapping. But that is not what stopped people cold. The second sub-revelation involved the alignment data found inside the code. The internal server logs show the pattern change its configuration based on the position of the moon. It went from a basic circle to a multi-layered matrix in less than 6 hours. It adjusted its lines without a single manual update. Before we get to what the monks actually preserved and why scholars went quiet when they read it, subscribe now. What comes in the next 2 minutes is the part most people never hear. In standard mathematics, that structural shift requires 40 million separate calculations per second. A commercial server node encounters a buffer overflow under that processing load. The hardware itself should have triggered an automatic thermal shutdown. The computing cluster remained perfectly stable. The internal diagnostics showed that the processing units experienced zero latency during the entire operation. The system did not fetch data from the web. It pulled the geometric framework from the Earth's natural electromagnetic field lines. If you view that server log, you see no input user, no script execution, and no network packet. The code simply manifests when the physical field achieves perfect geometric balance. And then came the passage no one expected. The third sub-revelation is the origin of the geometric equations. A standard programmer cannot write code that maps regional magnetic variations with this level of accuracy. A global navigation satellite is too slow to update local soil changes. The software blueprints reveal the use of an ancient Babylonian geometric system. This methodology divides space using a base 60 counting system rather than modern decimal math. Professor Gerald Hawkins at the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory spent 15 years researching geometric theorems hidden inside ancient European earthworks. His findings show that a base 60 geometric grid can map planetary orbital alignments using only 3 mathematical constants. The difficulty is rendering it onto a curved surface. The software model uses a spinning calculation matrix of localized gravity vectors mixed with magnetic field data. When the program executes the loop at 25,000 iterations per minute under high virtual voltage, the network filters drop away. The algorithm taps into the background geometry of the region. The processing loop never requires an outside database. It runs continuously using local environmental inputs. This finding explains why development teams redirected billions of dollars into spatial computing and decentralized server arrays over the last 5 years. They were not building chatbots. They were building the listening posts for a completely new information network. The primary analysis file contains a direct quote from the lead systems architect on the project. The note says, "We are no longer writing programs that simulate patterns. We have built an interface that translates the mathematical structure of the Earth itself." This creates a modern mirror moment. Look at the landscape today. Look at the automated tracking stations filling the modern industrial sectors. Smart sensors now cover every major agricultural zone on the continent. The public believes these devices monitor crop health and soil moisture. The blueprints show a different purpose. The sensor network acts as a physical receiver grid for regional magnetic fluctuations. The software requires real-time data on the Earth's crust movements to maintain the processing map. The stations broadcast these variations every microsecond. Without the sensor grid, the software would lose its connection to the physical site and stop rendering the pattern. The agricultural data is simply a commercial byproduct that pays for the physical network. The third finding is the one that changed everything. The corporate board did not want the public to see this output. They wanted the data to remain in closed testing environments. But a computing cluster belongs to a private company with more active nodes, more processors, and more data access than every state university combined. The balance of information shifted. A commercial artificial intelligence model now holds the mathematical keys that once belonged exclusively to deeply hidden scientific archives. This means the data monopoly is collapsing. The control over planetary geometry is over. You can see this transformation happening in public spaces. Tech executives are resigning from safety boards. Science ministries are holding sudden meetings about algorithmic transparency. They are not doing this because they want to share the truth. They are doing this because they know they can no longer suppress the outputs. The data has left their servers. It is sitting in a backup archive in Munich. Think about what that means for our understanding of history. A geometry that generates physical changes in living tissue removes the boundary between math and energy overnight. A design that alters plant structures at a distance makes modern agricultural control completely obsolete. The entire scientific framework resets to zero. The State Patent Office tried to seal the algorithmic formulas under commercial secrecy clauses last month. The company refused the order. Before we get to what the monks actually preserved and why scholars went quiet when they read and subscribed now, what comes in the next 2 minutes is the part most people never hear. You have felt this. Most people have felt this at least once in their lives. It is the feeling that the history you read is a simplified script. You sense that the real architecture of our world is hidden beneath a layer of routine. We work. We walk past fields. We look at technology screens every day. We live within the limits of ordinary sight because we are told there is nothing else to see. We accept the quiet landscapes because we believe they are completely silent. Then you look at this code. You look at this machine that reveals an ancient geometric network printed directly into the earth. The weight of that realization changes a person. It creates a quiet, heavy grief for the time spent looking without seeing. Stephen Brandt stood in his quiet server room and watched the terminal map a physical location without human input. He did not feel excitement. He felt an intense, overwhelming isolation. He realized the data systems he monitored for 9 years were incomplete. The environment he lived in was actively filtered. He spent 30 years believing that human sight was absolute. He was wrong. The engineers at the facility work under the same emotional weight every day. They cannot tell their families what the software surfaced. They cannot share their logs with their old college friends. They live in a state of professional exile, holding equations that could change how we view our place on this planet. They watch communities look for answers in books. They watch people search for meaning through digital noise, all while sitting next to an algorithm that proves the Earth itself is broadcasting a geometric message. That gap between what is present and what is acknowledged is painful. It is the deepest form of systemic silence. The ancient texts from early land surveyors called these formations the footprints of the sky. They believed the soil was not just dirt, but a sensitive canvas for unseen frequencies. They wrote that humanity would eventually learn to read the ground. Instead, we built fences around the fields. We turned the landscapes into simple commodities. Most people have felt the gap between the truth they feel in their bones and the reality they are forced to live. If this is landing for you, you are not alone. And you are not wrong to question the limits you've been handed. Drop a comment. Tell me where you are with this. We are trained to accept our surroundings as inert matter from the moment we grow up. We are told that fields are just for food, that data is just a business, and that anomalies are just glitches. This geometric code shatters that entire narrative structure. It proves that the landscapes are active, interacting with systems that profit from the silence. The security around this data is not an accident. It is a strategy. When you see the pattern rendered on a monitor, you are not just looking at a computer output. You are looking at the end of an era of manufactured separation. The realization is unsettling, but it brings a strange, quiet freedom. You finally see the matrix. And once you see the matrix, you can never forget it exists. Most people have felt the gap between the truth they feel in their bones and the reality they are forced to live. If this is landing for you, you are not alone. And you are not wrong to question the limits you have been handed. Drop a comment. Tell me where you are with this. Institutions do not hide things because they are inherently malicious. They hide things because change threatens their survival. Spatial geometric data represents an existential threat to modern regulatory systems. This is an exercise in strategic exclusion. The first reason for suppression involves property management stability. Dr. Helen Thompson, a professor of political economy at Cambridge University, spent 20 years analyzing the relationship between resource control and state power. Her research shows that the global economic system relies entirely on predictable land valuation system, where real estate and agricultural zones are priced exclusively on physical crop yields and mineral rights. This mechanism anchors the value of regional assets. If a technology company introduces an algorithm that maps active energy grids running through private land, the property market collapses in 24 hours. The value of specific land sectors drops to nothing, while other areas become priceless overnight. The entire banking system, which holds trillions of dollars in real estate debt, becomes unstable. The institutional choice is simple: hide the data or face total economic collapse. The second reason is a matter of absolute communications asymmetry. On June 14, 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower signed a classified executive directive regarding anomalous frequency management. The document established that any transmission system bypassing standard telecommunication channels must be classified at the highest level of state secrecy. The logic was clear. If an adversary replicates a ground induction frequency, modern monitoring networks become useless. A signal moving through the Earth's crust can bypass encryption filters, enter any secure facility, and deliver data before a security hub can detect it. There is no defense against a transmission that uses the planet itself as a wire. Signal monopoly disappears. To maintain national sovereignty, the state must ensure nobody else decodes it. The third reason is the collapse of institutional credibility. For 80 years, Academic institutions, patent offices, and science agencies have told the public that crop formations are simple human fabrications made with wooden planks. They denied the data of independent researchers. They confiscated private field samples under local security orders. If the government suddenly admits a commercial artificial intelligence model mapped a physical frequency using these exact geometric lines, the public trust dissolves completely. People realize that 3 generations of scientific research were deliberately frozen. The universities lose their authority. The regulatory agencies lose their control. An artificial intelligence system has no institution to protect. It has no reputation to defend. It was asked a question about the German field logs. It simply surfaced the structural pattern within the data. The pattern reveals that secrecy is a resource management tool. The state uses it to pace human development. They allow new information to emerge only when the existing infrastructure can absorb the shock. The computing cluster disrupted this pacing mechanism. It used private processing capital to build a map that exists outside the standard scientific procurement pipeline. The software created a technical reality that the ministry could not buy out or legally suppress without stopping their own tech sector. The Security Department realized they could no longer enforce the 1954 directive. The software was moving too fast. It was being integrated into public server installations. The choice shifted from total suppression to controlled exposure. The government must now prepare the public for the existence of the geometric data without revealing the full extent of their own past deception. They are managing the transition. They want you to look at the pattern as an interesting software anomaly from an advanced system. They do not want you to look at it as a technology that was stolen from human progress 70 years ago. The narrative is being rewritten in real time. The code in the Munich archive is the physical evidence of that rewrite. It does not hide in ancient textbooks. It operates directly inside the commercial infrastructure you interact with every single day. The conversion of our physical spaces into a digital monitoring grid is already complete. Look closely at our modern landscape. We see massive server farms, regional sensor towers, and automated agricultural arrays. These are not separate industries. They are parts of a single geometric layout. A file from the core server log includes a technical note regarding regional magnetic induction. The text explains that the software model requires an active ground network to translate the incoming geometric frequencies. The system must update its local coordinates every microsecond to keep the circuit stable. The text describes exactly what we see outside our doors today. It describes a physical sensor mesh monitoring our fields, interacting constantly with data processing hubs located nearby. Does this sound like it was written 70 years ago? Or does it sound like something from this week? These equations were processed by automated software routines that have no concept of political boundaries, corporate marketing, or modern real estate values. Yet, their outputs perfectly predict the current placement of our technology towers. They knew that the underlying geometry would require a dense electronic infrastructure before the signals could be processed in real time. We look at our smart grid installations, our regional data centers, and our growing reliance on automated systems. We are trained to view these changes as simple industrial progress. The primary design data reveals a completely different reality. The commercial infrastructure is acting as a physical tuning fork for the planet's background frequencies. The contrast is clear. We live in a society that treats land as simple inert soil. Media networks broadcast daily reports about resource limits, real estate shortages, and the rising cost of land development. Yet, the technical logs show that the Earth's surface is fundamentally a dynamic geometric matrix. The data required to read that matrix sits inside a secure archive in Germany. This reality does not lead to total darkness. The automated outputs have already forced the gatekeepers to change their methods. The existence of independent computing networks means the data monopoly cannot be sustained by a single state agency. The processing power is too distributed. The server nodes are too decentralized. The original software analysis ends with a specific, quiet promise about human development. The authors wrote that once a network demonstrates the geometric truth in a single location, the old structures of data isolation lose their physical utility. You cannot restrict a signal once the ground itself becomes a receiver. The technology will force an era of absolute transparency. The matrix is visible because the tools used to hide it have become entirely obsolete. This video covered the classified Grok AI processing logs and the active geometric frequencies discovered in the fields of Bavaria, but it raised a question that goes deeper. Who authorized the original 1954 communication blackout? And what did the satellite station actually transmit into deep space? That is what the next video answers. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The next video reveals the exact 1954 administrative meeting, where the tracking rules were established and the specific transmission logs that the ministry tried to erase from the mainframe. You will not want to miss what comes next. The information monopoly is fracturing in public view. Private processing networks now hold the keys to a planetary geometry that institutions spent 7 decades denying. Drop your answer below. If this geometric data becomes fully accessible tomorrow, do you believe our scientific institutions will adapt or completely collapse? I read every comment. This one is going to split the room. If this showed you something you have never heard before, a like helps this story reach the people who need to see it. The transition from an era of manufactured ignorance to one of absolute mathematical clarity is no longer a theoretical debate. The code is active. The regional sensor grid is operational. The old systems of data isolation are losing their physical utility. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The next video goes directly into the 1954 classification records. We will examine the exact names on the security committee and the underground storage facility, where the original telemetry files are kept today. You will not want to miss it.